In this video, you'll learn everything you need to know about the major temples of Bangkok. I'm going to start by going through what I'm calling the Bangkok Big 3, which is the 3 major temples that most people are referring to when they talk about the Bangkok Temples. In the video, I'll discuss a brief history of each temple, what to expect when visiting, the price, and some extra tips to get the most out of your visit. I'll then go on to give some more suggestions for some less well-known temples in Bangkok so you can have a more unique experience when visiting the city. I'm Jack and I run a Thailand-based travel agency. If you would like assistance planning your dream trip to Thailand, please get in touch from our website, jj-adventures.online. We make sure people get the best hotels, put them in touch with trusted local guides, and offer support before, during, and after your trip. If this sounds like something you're interested in, get in touch through our website below. Okay, let's start with the Bangkok Big 3. The Bangkok Big 3 are Wat Phra Kaew, Wat Pho, and Wat Arun. So Wat Phra Kaew is actually inside the Grand Palace, which means you'll have to pay the 500 baht entrance fee. That's no problem though, because the Grand Palace is a really great place to visit itself. Inside, you can expect to see a lot of Thai Buddhist architecture, statues of Buddhist mythological creatures, as well as a large golden chedi, which is a large tower. The palace was constructed in 1782 when the king decided to move the palace to this side of the Chao Phraya River. The palace is modeled after the former capital of Ayutthaya, which I'll talk a little bit about towards the end of the video. Wat Phra Kaew is located inside the Golden Palace. This temple is deeply associated with the Thai monarchy and is one of the most revered temples in the whole country. The highlight of this temple is the Emerald Jade Buddha, which is a small statue located inside the temple. It'll take approximately 2 to 3 hours to make your way around the Grand Palace and Wat Phra Kaew. Next up is Wat Pho, which was established by King Rama I in the 16th century. You can expect to see large, beautifully designed stupas as you walk around the gardens of this temple. Probably the most famous item in this temple is the large reclining Buddha, which is one of the biggest in Thailand. The statue, which is covered in gold leaf, stands at 46 meters long and 15 meters high, so it really is one of the bigger Buddha statues that you'll ever see. There are lots of other smaller golden Buddhas dotted around the temple too. There's a 200 baht entry fee to this temple, which is around $5 or £3. It's only about a 5-minute walk from the Grand Palace, so you can easily visit after visiting the Grand Palace. It'll take approximately 1 hour to make your way around Wat Pho. The last of the Bangkok Big 3 is Wat Arun. Wat Arun lies across the Chao Phraya River from the other 2 temples. It's easily accessed by boat, which costs about 5 baht to go across, from Ta Tien Pier, which is in between Wat Pho and the Grand Palace, so again, easily accessible. Wat Arun was first established in the 17th century but has gone through major changes to be the temple that it's become today. Despite being a Buddhist temple, Wat Arun is named after the Hindu god Aruna, and the main feature of Wat Arun is its central prang, a towering structure embellished with colourful ceramics and seashells. Side note, if anyone can tell me why this is called a chedi, this is called a stupa, and this is called a prang, please let me know in the comments below. They all just look like towers to me. Wat Arun is open from 8 AM to 6 PM. It costs 100 baht to enter, and it takes about 1.5 hours to explore the whole temple. In my opinion, the best view of this temple comes from across the river rather than actually going to see it yourself. Up close, this kind of looks quite similar to Wat Pho. However, if you're viewing it from across the river, you get to see the boats going past, the sun setting behind it, and I think this is probably my favorite temple, but you don't actually even need to go in it to really fully experience it. Let's talk now about some tips for visiting the Bangkok Big 3. Well, the first thing to note is that this is quite a lot of temples to visit in one day. Visitors often complain of being templed out from visiting so many temples. It's also a really hot area town because there's no shade, there's no skyscrapers nearby. And for some reason, everything's painted white, so the light and the heat reflects. Every time I walk around this area, I notice how hot it is, and you can see tourists everywhere dripping with sweat, looking kind of miserable from walking around all day. My solution for this is to either split this up into 2 days. It wouldn't be a terrible idea to come see 2 on one day and then come back and maybe see Wat Arun. Alternatively, you could just visit the Grand Palace and then Wat Pho, and then, like I said before, just look at Wat Arun from across the river. You don't need to go across if that feels like it's going to be too much for you. Alternatively, you might want to take a big break in the middle of the day. Luckily, in this area, there's lots of restaurants. Some of them are really swanky and quite nice. Some of them are no frills. However, there's lots of places to sit down, eat a meal, get a cold drink, get an ice cream, whatever, and recharge your batteries. The order I suggest viewing these temples is in the order that I've shown you them. First, the Grand Palace, then Wat Pho, then Wat Arun. The reason being that there's more to see in the Grand Palace and it gets the busiest, so I would suggest getting there as early as possible to beat the crowds and the heat. The Grand Palace opens about 8:30 AM. If you can get there not long after that, that'd be the perfect time. You will not be allowed to enter the temples if you are dressed inappropriately. That means no shorts, no skirts, no tank tops, no visible tattoos. Now don't worry, that doesn't mean that you have to walk around covered up all day. If you want, there are places to rent shirts and rent saris to cover your legs all around the temple. It costs about 200 baht, and you rent it for the day and then you give it back at the end. And this way you'll be allowed into the temple. You just need to cover up when you're there. Another thing to note is that you must take your shoes off when going inside some of these temples. It's disrespectful to walk in there with your shoes on, so please take your shoes off. You'll see it because there'll be lots of shoes to the side, so you'll know when to take them off. Unfortunately, because this is one of the biggest tourist areas in Bangkok, it also attracts scam artists. This is one of the dodgiest places I've been around town. The biggest scam to be aware of is that as you're walking up to these temples, there'll be tuk-tuk drivers there and they'll tell you that the temples are closed for the day. Don't believe them, they're lying to you. They're trying to get you into their tuk-tuk to take you somewhere else, I believe to charge you an obscene price. In general, Bangkok is really safe. However, I've noticed this scam all around the temples. I've also noticed a lot of signs saying beware of pickpockets. Now, I've never actually heard of anyone getting pickpocketed in Bangkok, in the whole of Bangkok actually. However, there's plenty of signs there, which means it must have happened at some point, so please watch your stuff in this area. It is possible to rent an English-speaking guide at the temples. Now, I've never done this, but I assume it's good value for money. There's not a lot of information inside the temple telling you what things are, so you would get quite a lot of information from having a guide. I have also seen some stuff online about guided tours, and some of them seem reasonable. However, some of them seem extremely high. I've seen like over $100 for a group tour per person. So if there's two of you, that means it'd be $200. I think this seems like a bit of a rip-off. Please don't pay too much more than the stated prices that I've given you now, because that would be way over the top. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to show you some less touristy temples to explore in Bangkok. These temples are still largely used as temples rather than tourist attractions, so this will give you a more unique experience when you stay in Bangkok. One of my favorite temples to visit is Wat Phra Kaew. Wat Phra Kaew lies beside Bangkok Yai Canal, and this can be visited as part of a canal tour. And this is a really stunning temple. The highlight of it has to be the giant golden Buddha, which is about 40 meters tall, lying at the side of the canal. There's also, again, another massive chedi. This time you can go inside and admire some of the Buddhist artwork inside it. This temple is free to enter. Wat Benjamabohit Dusit Wat Arun, also known as the Marble Temple, is a really pristine, beautiful temple lying in Chinatown. It has a beautiful garden area, and this temple was constructed in the 19th century, so it's one of the newest temples on this list. This spot isn't particularly well visited, however, it is popular with the Instagrammer crowd. There's a certain framing of a picture where you get to see one of the arches and the temple, so while there might not be many people visiting the temple, there might actually be a queue to take a picture in a certain spot at a certain time of day, so please be aware of that. Wat Phra Kaew, also known as the Golden Mount, is yet another chedi, located not too far away from Khao San Road on the top of a hill. What I like most about this temple is that you have great views of the city from there. You have an unobstructed view. Because it's the older part of town, there's not a lot of skyscrapers. So you get an unobstructed view of the river. You can even see the Bangkok Big 3 in the distance. So you get to see a lot of cool sights from the top of this temple. There's also a lot of great food in the side streets near this temple, so that's definitely worth checking out. Wat Mangkong Kamalawat is one of the largest Chinese temples in the whole of Thailand. Now, this has a completely different feel to it because it's a Chinese temple. It's completely different to the Thai Buddhist temples. So if you're not visiting other Asian countries, I would definitely check out a temple like this while you're here. This is also in Chinatown, so there's plenty of great food nearby too. A really cool day trip to have in Bangkok is exploring the Chao Phraya River. There's an island to the north of Bangkok lying in the middle of the Chao Phraya River, and you can take a boat from the city center to this island. The island's called Koh Kret. There's lots of cool things to do there. In fact, I have a whole video about Koh Kret, which I'll link above here. However, on the boat trip to there, it takes about 2 hours and you'll pass by some really cool temples. There are some boat trips that will stop at each one. You can get off and go explore it. But even if you're just staying on the boat and admiring the view, it's just really cool to sail past these unique temples. Some of the more interesting ones are there's a 9-story Chinese pagoda. There's another giant Buddha statue, this time with a naga protecting the Buddha. So you'll see it has lots of snake heads coming over behind it. The naga is a mythological creature from Buddhist mythology. And the final one near Koh Kret is Wat Bang Chak, another giant Buddha lying at the side of the river. This is one of my favorite day trips to do in the whole of Bangkok. Now, the final place that I want to mention is the former capital of Thailand, Ayutthaya. This is an ancient city that has fell into disrepair. It's actually a completely different city to Bangkok. However, a lot of people do it as a day trip from the city, so I'm going to include it in this list. Again, you'll get a completely different feel for temples here because they're in disrepair. They're ancient temples that were built over 500 years ago. Ayutthaya was the capital city of Thailand until the Burmese invaded in the 1700s, and they forced the king and the government to move to Bangkok, which is how you got the city that you see here today. This takes about a 2-hour drive. It can also be visited by train or on a longer boat trip. It's free to enter the park, however, you have to pay about 50 baht to enter some specific temples or monuments. Okay, I've enjoyed making this video. If you would like to see me do a deep dive about a topic related to travel in Thailand, please let me know in the comments below what you would like to learn about, and I'm happy to make that video. If you'd like to check out another city with amazing temples, check out my travel guide for Chiang Mai here.